Thanks, Jane. Hello, you're watching Wales Today. I'm Rebecca John. The headlines. The Prime Minister and First Minister lead tributes to the Labour Senedd member Hefin David, who's died suddenly at the age of 47.
Hefin was an outstanding member for his constituency of Caerphilly. He was an enthusiastic member of the Senedd and contributed brilliantly to our committees. Our thoughts go out to all of those who are affected by this tragedy.
Mr David's death is not being treated as suspicious, also tonight. The Home Secretary announces Wales is to get more police officers to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour on a visit to Cardiff, but opposition parties say it's not enough. Catherine Dutson hasn't been able to shower in her own home for 4 years. She says a lack of urgency in finding her a new place to live is demoralising.
We have never found anything that suits my needs and will work in this space. So it's been really, really hard and really demoralising.
And Eric Ward's father, Russell, survived 3 years in a Japanese prisoner of war camp ahead of VJ Day. He hopes veterans' experiences won't be forgotten. Noswaith, good evening. The Prime Minister and First Minister have led tributes to the Welsh Labour politician Hefin David, who's died suddenly at the age of 47. Mr David had been the Senedd member for Caerphilly since 2016. Sir Keir Starmer called him a powerful voice for the people of Wales, who dedicated his life to making sure every person and community had the opportunities and support they deserve. Our political correspondent Amelia Belly reports.
Hefin David's final contribution last month in the place he spent almost a decade defending the interests of the place he loved. Today would have been his 48th birthday, but earlier confirmation from the First Minister of his sudden death and a tribute to his life.
The Labour family is devastated by the sudden loss of Hefin David, and our thoughts go out to his family and friends at this incredibly difficult time. Hefin was an outstanding member for his constituency of Caerphilly. He was an enthusiastic member of the Senedd and contributed brilliantly to our committees. Our thoughts go out to all of those who are affected by this tragedy.
Mr David was one of Labour's most prominent backbenchers. Gwent Police said they were called to a medical emergency in Nelson in Caerphilly yesterday evening, where a 47-year-old was found unresponsive. His death is not being treated as suspicious. Hefin David was from a Labour family from Penpedareol near Bargoed in Caerphilly. He said he first canvassed for the party from the age of 5 or 6. He was a lecturer and a county councillor before being elected to represent Caerphilly in 2016.
I, Hefin David, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth.
At Cardiff Bay, he was never afraid to go against the party line or make lively contributions like this one in 2023, which resulted in a reprimand.
Plaid Cymru are making it very clear in Caerphilly that they are not accepting any council tax rise at all. In fact, what they've said, you might want to speak to your Plaid Cymru group. You know, we know that they're mad as a box of frogs in Caerphilly.
As well as being one of 5 commissioners responsible for the day-to-day running of the Senedd, he worked cross-party on several committees.
It's no surprise to me that politicians from across the political parties have paid tribute to Hefin. We'll miss Hefin when we return to our work in the Senedd in September. He always had something that was worth listening to say. He always stood up for his constituents in Caerphilly. He was a true champion of Caerphilly. He'll be remembered as that champion of Caerphilly within our Senedd, and we will mourn his loss, and we will feel his loss when we return to our political debate in September.
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer paid tribute to him as a powerful voice for Wales and a committed public servant. He was passionate about getting people into work and vocal about supporting those with additional learning needs, like his daughter.
When I stood for election, autism was one of those things that I wanted to stand up for. And I never dreamt that it would be directly affecting me and my family.
He was a supporter of Vaughan Gething's leadership bid and an ally during the subsequent turbulence. Today, the former First Minister said, much more importantly, he was my friend. And while he was Labour through and through, he didn't let party politics get in the way of other friendships across the political spectrum either.
Hefin was one of those characters who managed to put his arms across those political aisles and was a passionate campaigner on many things, not least autism, of course, which affected one of his children. So, you know, he is a loss to the Senedd, and I'm sure we'll all be paying our respects in due course.
I and everybody in Plaid Cymru today send our deepest condolences to Hefin's family and, of course, to his partner, Vicky. He was always someone who brought real energy and enthusiasm and vigour in standing up for his community and for issues that were close to his heart. We worked together personally on a number of issues, and he was genuinely outspoken, spoke his mind and left a real mark in that respect. As a member of Labour's backbenchers, he made a significant contribution, and he will be greatly missed.
Laura Ann Jones of Reform also said he would be missed greatly politically and personally. The thoughts of many tonight are with his partner, fellow Senedd member and Government Minister Vicky Howells, his two daughters, and the communities in Caerphilly he spent so many years representing.
Very, very sad news and a huge shock. I remember Hefin when I arrived in the Senedd. He was very kind to me. I remember what he said. He said, it's really lovely to have you here and a very warm welcome to you. I worked with him on quite a few things, but I remember his passion for representing people and children with disabilities, and so a huge loss to us all.
Here at the Senedd, a sign of respect to mark his contribution to Welsh political life, as the tributes from politicians and public alike continue to come in.
And our correspondent Amelia Belly is at the Senedd tonight. Millie, there's been real shock at this news today and tributes from across the political spectrum.
Yeah, Rebecca, absolutely. This news was unexpected, and so that sense of shock has just really bled through everything, any interactions we've been having today. And then as people digested the news, we got that sense of sorrow. And, you know, there are no politicians here at the moment because currently we are in recess. But as we said at the end of that package there, the flags in front of me here are still at half-mast, and that is just a sign of the respect that this institution wants to pay to the impact that Mr. David made. And we spoke a little bit in that piece of and we saw just some of the tributes that have been coming in, but that is just a fraction of them. You know, we had MSs of all political stripes paying tribute to Mr. David, but also MPs, councillors, former constituents that he'd helped, the police and other members of the public, even former political rivals and mentors. And that just really speaks to Mr. David's ability to form relationships with people. And beyond that as well, he was always a very approachable and friendly person to talk to. And when he spoke in the chamber, you would want to pay attention to him and listen. He spoke compellingly and plainly, and he wasn't afraid to go against his own government on occasion. So it meant that whenever he did speak, he did make an impact. And that is the thing that is really people are going to be carrying forwards now. There will be a lot more grieving moving forwards as there is an inquest, a funeral, but ultimately when Senedd members come back here in a few weeks' time after recess, that's when his absence on those backbenches is going to be really felt.
Millie, thank you. Every community in Wales will get a named police officer under plans announced by the Home Secretary. On a visit to Cardiff, Yvette Cooper said an extra 193 police and community support officers will be recruited next year. But opposition parties say that's not enough, as David Grundy reports.
Bobby's on the beat in the Canton area of Cardiff. Soon there'll be more of them across Wales. The Home Secretary's announced plans to boost police and community support officer numbers, a total of 13,000 across Wales and England over the next 4 years. To begin with, it'll mean an extra 70 officers for South Wales Police and a total of 193 across Wales next year. But will that be enough to tackle issues like antisocial behaviour?
It means that, yes, across Wales, that's already a 20% increase in the space of 1 year in the number of neighbourhood police back on the beat, back in our town centres, particularly targeting our town centres, because I think that town centre crime hasn't been taken seriously for far too long. It wasn't under the Conservatives, and that's why we're supporting this big boost for neighbourhood policing.
Here in Canton, the police have been involved in a pilot scheme which has seen additional resources, which officers say is already making a difference.
When I first came here, people, they would always be asking, what are police doing? Like, what's going on? Now, we've got such a good relationship. The community is so used to seeing us that we're not having those conversations. We're having conversations about what's happening in the community instead. So it's broken down barriers already.
Every neighbourhood will now have a named, contactable officer to tackle local issues. At his shop on Cowbridge Road East, Stavros has been cutting hair for almost 60 years.
Well, I've noticed when there is antisocial behaviour, within like 10-15 minutes, they turn up, which is pity. Obviously, someone's phoned through and said someone's fallen on the floor, or he's drunk, or he got problems. And they do come up, but generally we don't get much trouble in Canton, nowhere anywhere else in Britain.
Do you think having more bobbies out on the beat rather than the offices and the police stations doing paperwork is a good thing to try and put people off?
Of course, yeah. If they see a policeman walking up and down, they're much less likely to cause trouble or shout or whatever.
The Home Secretary's plans will see an extra 193 officers recruited in Wales next year. Plaid Cymru have described it as a pitiful allocation and say it's clear that justice and policing should now be devolved. While Reform UK says it would aim to recruit an extra 30,000 police officers every year. Back in Canton, do people think they see enough police on the streets?
Especially kind of around the pubs, it seems to be quite antisocial. To be honest, I haven't seen too many police around those areas. But I guess if you need them in an emergency, they'd be there, I'd hope.
Drunk people trying to cross the road when they've had too much to drink and almost getting run over. There's quite a lot of that sort of thing going on. And I know that there's been quite a few people stealing things from the supermarkets.
While this plan will see more police officers and PCSOs, another issue is trying to keep hold of experienced officers and stopping them leaving the force. That challenge remains.
Now, imagine being unable to shower in your own home for 4 years. Well, that's what's happened to Catherine Dutson from Cardiff. She can't walk or stand and says the adapted chair she needs won't fit into her current bathroom. She's asked the council to find her somewhere more suitable to live, as Yolo Chung reports.
As you can see, it's very, very tight for space.
Catherine Dutson from Cardiff has had mobility issues since childhood, but a few years ago they became worse. Scoliosis of the spine and an undiagnosed genetic condition, among others, mean she cannot walk or stand. She can barely manoeuvre her chair around the bathroom, let alone the specialist equipment she would now need to shower.
When was the last time you were able to have a shower in this room then?
2021. So all this time I've been not able to use this wet room and asking for help, really, to find either a way to extend this property or to be rehoused.
It's meant years of being bedwashed by carers, a situation she says is unacceptable.
It's been really, really hard and demoralising. It's just been 4 years of hell, really. And sort of no hope that we can find a bathroom that's going to work for me and to give me kind of that dignity.
Catherine has been documenting her struggles on TikTok, finding common cause with others in similar situations. In fact, housing is one of the top concerns for disabled people, according to one leading charity.
What this all comes down to is the ability to live independently, because if you can't have a home where you can actually thrive in and be independent in your own home, then it's difficult to be able to go out and about and live an independent life as a whole. A really common theme when we get inquiries and when we're talking to disabled people is that feeling that they have been forgotten about, pushed aside, feeling like they're being made out to be a burden on society when all they want to do is to be able to live with a bit more dignity.
According to Catherine, her housing association say an extension would be too expensive, while she's waited years for Cardiff Council to find alternative accommodation.
So this was sent on the 9th of April last year.
In a letter last year, the council said they were working urgently and exploring all avenues to find suitable accommodation, but that things were taking longer than they would have liked. 16 months on, Catherine feels let down.
Having a can-do attitude to find solutions is what's needed, and not kind of apathy and, you know, it's kind of been put in a too difficult pile and it's a horrible feeling. There are people with more complex needs and they are often the ones that are left with no help because it's kind of too difficult to do.
And with no solution in sight, Catherine's campaign for better disabled-friendly housing goes on.
Still to come in the programme. Eric Ward's father, Russell, survived 3 years in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. He hopes veterans' experiences won't be forgotten.
And it's been cooler for most of us today, but hot again in Flintshire. A little cooler tomorrow, but there's another heat wave on the way. I'll have the latest forecast.
Tomorrow is a big day for thousands of young people who will be getting their results for A-level, AS and vocational qualifications. Last year, top grades at A-level were down after extra support measures to take account of the pandemic were phased out. But what can we expect this year? Well, our education and family correspondent Bethan Lewis is here. Bethan, any indication of how it's looking?
Well, we won't know the details until tomorrow morning, Rebecca, but broadly speaking, what we've been told by the exams watchdog Qualifications Wales over the past few months is to expect something similar to what we were seeing before the pandemic in 2019. Now, since 2020, you know, when we've talked about results days and grades, it's really been dominated by the effect of the pandemic. Initially, exams were cancelled, of course, then measures were put in place. Grades reached a peak when grades were awarded by teachers back in 2021. And since then, those measures have been removed gradually, trying to glide back to some sort of normality. Now, in 2020, when almost half of grades were A star and A, last year, with more or less all of those extra measures removed, it was down to 30%, which was still above what we saw in 2019. Now, we're told that some grade boundaries could be a bit higher this year, but broadly speaking, generally across Wales, results more or less what we were seeing before the pandemic.
And a nervous night for those who need the grades to get into university.
Yes, and they'll be able to access their offers and what's happened to their offers tomorrow morning from around 8 o'clock on the UCAS system, with details of their grades then from their school or college. But some reassurance maybe from what the head of UCAS said last week, that she expects more young people to get their first choice, even if they're a grade or so out, because universities are looking for financial stability. We've heard of their financial troubles, maybe likely to want more domestic students in place with that uncertainty about international students. But also, of course, clearing is still an option where those free spaces on courses are up for grabs. Also, some people, of course, will be going on to apprenticeships, maybe going straight into work or taking a year out.
Bethan, thank you. The boss of the Welsh Rugby Union, Abby Tierney, will step away from her role after being diagnosed with cancer. The chief executive will take time away from her duties from the end of next week to undergo treatment with no return date given. The WRU chair, Richard Collier-Keywood, will take temporary overall charge in her absence. It comes as the union is considering cutting the number of professional sides in Wales from 4 to 2. Cricket and Welsh Fire men have just got underway in their game in the 100 competition against Manchester Originals. Earlier, it was a 3 defeat in 3 for the women's side. Manchester Originals won by 7 wickets. More than 50,000 people have spent the last 2 days enjoying the annual Anglesey show. It's one of the biggest agricultural shows in Wales after the Royal Welsh. And this year it's been blessed with plenty of sunshine. Our reporter Chris Dearden is there for us this evening. Chris.
And that's a wrap. The 2025 Anglesey show has just finished. People already melting away from the showground faster than an ice cream in the Welsh sunshine. And it's been a really nice couple of days. Cooler than yesterday, but the organisers reckon the sunshine and a gentle breeze brought out an even bigger crowd for the second day of the Anglesey show. And among them, the youngest young farmer on the island, 5-week-old baby Gethin at his first sioe morn with Dad Rhys.
agriculture is having a tough time constantly, quite a big one at the moment, but it's nice to get together and discuss these problems with people from a younger generation to an older generation. We all have the same argument, the same discussions we're trying to have with people in the powers that be, and it's great here to get the argument together. That conversation, what's troubling you might be troubling somebody else, and then we pull together and we show that the agricultural sector is a strong sector as a whole.
But there were some old friends who couldn't make it. Restrictions to stop the spread of the blue tongue virus meant that English breeders couldn't enter the sheep and cattle classes this year. Margaret Hughes from Mynydd Mecheth in the north of Anglesey was showing her Hill Radnor sheep. Despite a few grumpy moments, Gatsby the ram and 2 ewes made it through to the Supreme Championship.
We have a lovely day out, we show the breed, we show what they're capable of, and just have a nice time. These are all blue tongue vaccinated. Unfortunately, we've lost 2 really good exhibitors that come over from England, from Oswestry and from Preston, so it's a shame. So keep fingers crossed that they'll be able to come back next year.
And there have been plenty of other challenges for the Anglesey show to overcome in recent years. The team have had to build the show back after the pandemic and reach out to younger people as well, work that's largely been done by volunteers.
We've got a lot of local volunteers, we're so lucky, and we're all a group that come together to put the show on, and that makes all the hard work worth it then when you see what we've got on show here then.
So lots of hard work as ever, but one which the organisers say has been rewarding, and by the end of the day, not a cloud in the sky.
I should say that the show administrator, the woman who keeps everything together over these intense 2 days and is the powerhouse of planning during the year, has been enjoying the sunshine as well this evening. She finally allowed herself 5 minutes to have an ice cream on the balcony of the show office earlier on. That's partly because, of course, come next week, guess what? They got stuck into planning for 2026.
Chris, thank you. This week, we're marking 80 years since victory over Japan Day and the end of the Second World War. Tonight, the son of a veteran who survived 3 years in a prisoner of war camp tells us he hopes future generations won't forget the suffering endured by men like his father. Eric Ward from Rhuddlan has learned much about what his father Russell went through in the years since he died, but he already knew how his father began a lifelong friendship after spotting another prisoner wearing a hat with the words Sunny Rhyl on the front, as Rob Thomas reports.
When we met my dad on Rhyl railway station, I remember that vividly because I remember addressing me and going to meet him and him stepping off the train with his army gear on. I remember all that.
Now 84, Eric Ward was 5 when he met his dad Russell for the first time. Captured when Singapore fell in February 1942, Royal Artilleryman Russell was held in the notorious Changi prison before being shipped over 2,000 miles to Taiwan, then known as Formosa, and under the control of the Japanese Empire. Having survived a brutal voyage that killed many prisoners, Russell was sent to work deep underground in the copper mines at Kinkaseki.
They had to work like slaves down the copper mine each day. In the morning they had a little bowl of rice to eat, which they were not meant to eat until midday. And then when they came back to the camp at night, they had another bowl of rice. So they were like living skeletons in the end.
But in the midst of such horror, Russell spotted a reminder of home that led to a lifelong friendship.
He saw this young man, only about 20, younger than my dad, he was only a boy, really, and he had a hat on his head and it said Sunny Rhyl. And obviously they got chatting, and Avion, who had been in the camp before my dad, said, I'm a driller. He said, I drill for the dynamite. He said, I'll try and get you to work with me. And they worked together down the mines. I don't know how many prisoners were in the camp. Must have been over 1,000. Life is full of coincidences, isn't it?
Avion and Russell were separated in the final months of the war, but both did return to Rhuddlan, where they remained firm friends until Russell died in 1992. Since then, Eric has retraced their footsteps and learnt more about their ordeal. 2 men caught up in a global conflict affecting tens of millions, but who made it home to sunny Rhyl.
I hope they're remembered, even if it's only in a smaller way. You know, VE Day and VJ Day, because then you don't forget the men who went through it.
Let's get the weather forecast now. Derek, cooler for most of us today, but more hot weather on the way.
Yes, that's right, Rebecca. Temperatures are set to rise again during Friday and over the weekend, with heatwave conditions developing across much of Wales as we go through the weekend, lasting into next week. More on that in a moment. First today, and low cloud in parts of the south and west has been stubborn to clear, quite grey at Brandy Cove on Gower today, but a different story in parts of mid-north and east Wales. Lots of sunshine in Caernarfon in Gwynedd. Now, temperatures today have been lower compared to yesterday, but still hot in Flintshire. The heat wave continued there with a high of 29.5 Celsius at Harden. Now, after a dry evening, cloud will increase after midnight. A few scattered showers turning up in the south and west. These could be heavy and potentially thundery in places. Another warm and close night, lowest temperatures around 13 to 16 Celsius. Now, tomorrow fronts will move eastwards and then high pressure will build across the UK during Friday and into the weekend. For tomorrow, first of all, there will be some cloud around together with a scattering of showers. And if you catch one of these showers, it could be quite heavy, maybe with a rumble of thunder. During the afternoon, though, it will tend to brighten up with some sunny spells developing, especially on southern and western coasts. Temperatures a little cooler than today, but still warm or very warm, 26 Celsius in Monmouth with a light to moderate breeze. Now into Friday, we start off with some patches of low cloud and mist, but that will clear, leaving a fine day with plenty of sunshine, and it will turn out hot in mid and south Wales. The high could reach 30 Celsius in Cardiff, a little cooler on parts of the north and west coast with an onshore breeze around 20 Celsius in Llandudno. Then the weekend looks fine and sunny. A bit breezier too, and very warm or hot. Temperatures soaring into the mid to high 20s Celsius, and the heat looks set to continue into next week with another heat wave on the way for much of the country. That's it. Back to Rebecca.
Derek, thank you. That's Wales Today. We'll be back with our late update after the news at 10. Have a good evening. Goodbye. Hwyl fawr.